Hello, everybody. Welcome to a very special bonus episode of the Carl and Heather Present podcast featuring Heather. This is our Africa update episode, babe. You just got back a couple days ago from Africa, and we wanted to give an update to people who are listening, also people who supported you on the trip. It's very meaningful to see how many people got involved in helping you go to Africa and helping you minister to some incredible women there in South Sudan, Africa. Is that right? That's where you went?
Yep. I went to a small village called Lietnam in South Sudan.
Lietnam, South Sudan. Tell me about South Sudan.
Okay. Well, it's a new country. So it was originally part of Sudan, became its own country about 13 years ago. So it's a teenager, like as far as country goes.
That's crazy.
They have an illiteracy rate of 73%, 51% poverty rate, and more women die in childbirth in South Sudan than anywhere else in the world. So there's a huge need. The UN came up with something called a Human Development Index, the HDI, and they rank countries based on three things. It's the health of the country, which deals with like average life expectancy, diseases in the area, all kinds of things like that. Education, average education, and then the income per capita. And out of the 193 countries in the world, South Sudan is 192. So
wow.
incredibly impoverished.
Didn't you say Somalia?
Somalia is 193. Yeah.
Is 193.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a huge need physically, spiritually, mentally, all kinds of needs there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wow. So where did you stay when you were there?
Yeah. I stayed at a guest house that they have, and I use that term loosely. I would say the best way to describe it was primitive. Now, while for them it was lavish accommodations, it was just a bed in a room, and then we had buckets in another small room that we used to just take cups. There was no running water, no power. The ministry that supports South Sudan has built some solar panels and things like that. So you have a little bit of lights and things like that, but there's no power grid there and running water. So it was very primitive.
So you were there supporting the ministry of our friend James Bach.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about James.
Yeah. So James Bach was one of the lost boys. I don't have time to go into that, but you can look up information on their website, which we'll share at the end. But he had a heart for that area, and he lives there. He's on the ground there, and he's been investing in South Sudan his whole life. He's given his life away for his people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, give me a couple of highlights from the trip.
Yeah.
What did you experience or see or do? I know you showed me a video of a bull being slaughtered.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
That was crazy.
That was
But
intense.
that was for them. Hey, we're gonna kill the fatted calf because our friends are here. It was a beautiful thing.
It made the Bible come to life for me. That okay. Two things that stand out for me. Number one, we got a call that there was a little baby in a women's clinic that they've established. It's called the A-Check Women's Clinic. And this baby was tested positive for malaria. He was 8 months old, but his hemoglobin was too low to begin some of the treatment, and he was not going to make it through the night. He needed a blood transfusion. Now, because of lack of education in the area, the thought process for someone who is South Sudanese would be, I only have so much blood in my body, so I can't give blood, or I'll lose what I have. They don't understand the concept of it regenerating. And so I happened to be a match for this baby and this baby's blood, and it was like a no-brainer for me. But it was such a gift to be able to go and give blood. And then I give blood regularly here, but I don't get to see the effect of it, like the benefit, or I don't know who benefits, but like literally they put it in a cooler for about 15 minutes after I gave. And then I watched them transfuse it into his arm, and I watched a lifeless little baby pipe up. And it was just an honor, but it made me realize too that there's like such a need for education, because the people of South Sudan could have donated that blood as well. Yeah. And they will hopefully in the future, but that was the first highlight. The second one was a woman named Elizabeth. And one of the things I was able to teach on with the women there was how to have a healthy marriage. And it was interesting because marriages there are very different than here. There's a lot of polygamy in that culture. Because of that, there are a lot of STDs. which lead to pelvic inflammatory disease, which also lead to infertility. So there's an infertility that they struggle with because of polygamy. There's spousal abuse. And so teaching someone how to love a spouse in that way is very different than like some of the stuff that we talk about. But I also know that the Bible is relevant for everybody, everywhere, every time.
Okay.
And so because of that, Jesus teaches us forgiveness. He teaches us unconditional love. And so as I was talking to the women about how you can live out forgiveness with your husband and how you can love him well and how you can be an encourager to him, we prayed over some women specifically who were struggling in their marriages. And the next day, a woman who had been separated from her husband, her name's Elizabeth, with her 6 kids, said that the Lord stirred her heart and she reconciled with her husband that night. So she went back to him and he had been waiting for her and was excited to rejoin and reconcile. And they actually had formal divorce papers that they had started. And so they got rid of those and they're going to reconcile. And so it made me realize everybody needs help with their marriage.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're an impoverished country or you're the richest person in the world. We all struggle with our marriages, but God can redeem even the most broken things. So
that's really, really good. What a beautiful story.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Babe, I'm super proud of you,
Thank you.
for going and having this ministry. And I know there was dozens of other things that the Lord used that you will have no idea
Right.
about. And I'm proud of you.
Well, it was an honor. And I felt like you said at the beginning, a lot of people came alongside of me and supported me. It's really hard to get there because it's so remote. So it's also very expensive. So the trip was not a cheap trip. It takes a long time, but there were a lot of people who said, hey, I want to help and I want to do that. And I think that as believers, we're called to do that. We're called to do 3 things, one of 3 things. We're called to pray, give, or go. Yeah. And I think, we can't be involved in every cause out there, but because you're listening to this right now, you're made aware of a need. Right. And there is a huge need in South Sudan.
All right. So how do we help South Sudan?
Yeah. So the best thing you can do is go to their website to find out more, and you can donate there. You can become a monthly giver or you can do a one-time donation. The website is transformsouthsudan.org.
Okay, and so that's the name of this ministry.
Yes.
That's James Box Ministry.
James Box Ministry.
TransformSouthSudan.org.
Yes, and you can go there. You can see what they've done and then what the goal is. The goal is not to just pour money into people and just kind of leave them as they are. It's to empower the South Sudanese people to become educated, to have better self-care, to learn the gospel and share the gospel. And so it's been happening for years now, but it's growing at a quick rate, and it's exciting to be a part of. And so I think, if the Lord's stirring in your heart or you hear something, you think, I'd love to be a part of this. You can help a baby get needed oxygen. You can help with malaria medication that a lot of people die of. You can help a woman give birth and have someone assisting her at the clinic where she would normally not be able to do that. So there's lots of needs.
You told me a story about they only have one oxygen tank, and the oxygen was being given to a baby.
Yes.
But a mom who had just given birth was experiencing life-threatening blood clots, and she too needed oxygen. So they had to take the oxygen tank away from the baby, and kind of like it was moving back and forth. So for the cost of one more oxygen tank, you might be able to radically transform what's going on there.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. Well, Transform South Sudan, that's the way to give.
Yes.
Proud of you for going.
Thank you.
Thankful for all the people that helped support the trip.
Yeah. It was an awesome team that went with me, and then awesome to know that there were people here praying and who had given to help make it happen. So
okay, so last question. How did it change you?
Oh man, it made me realize, and I mentioned this earlier, that the gospel is relevant to everyone, and that there is such a need for the world to know about Jesus and how much he loves them. And that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you live. It doesn't matter how much money you make. It doesn't matter how educated you are. The gospel is for everybody. And so I would say, take that gospel wherever you go. You might not go to South Sudan, but you have neighbors that need to know about Jesus. You have coworkers that need to know about Jesus. So it fired me up knowing that I can take the gospel everywhere I go.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for listening to this bonus episode of Carl and Heather Present. Like we say always, together on purpose.
Together on purpose.
It's Carl and Heather Present.